Hey guys, Jake Migas. Got my PowerPoint over here, and I'm going to discuss how diesel engines have evolved since the 1990s. Um, with the introduction is without diesel engines evolving and trying to get better, there wouldn't be anything that we see today. We're seeing engines that are putting out almost 500 horsepower with almost 1,000 foot-pounds of torque. And each competitor is just trying to put out that better engine every year, try to make the customers want to buy their engine. And without evolving these engines, we'd be still turning over our diesel engines with a hand crank. Not only are these guys put more horsepower and torque in an engine, they're trying to make it easier for the operator to operate these engines and the vehicles that these engines are put into. Probably the most important thing, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, how fuel injection helps because of the emission regulations that are out. But fuel injection, let's talk about that for a while. The amount of pressure that they are injecting this fuel at, and the angles and split shot injectors, and just the way they're trying to atomize this fuel is crazy. And just to think the way fuel is injected can increase the horsepower or increase the torque that is coming out of this engine. We see there's many different types of injectors. We got the common rail, we've got Huey, we've got UE, or in other words, MUI. In those designs, we got split shot injectors. It's the more fuel that you're getting and the higher compression, the more horsepower and torque you're getting out of this engine, and that is what these manufacturers are trying to come up with. And you go on any website that you search up this evolution, and they think the most important thing is this fuel injection, and I agree. Just to give you a little insight, I put a stealth module in my pickup, and it's a diesel, and it's a 2001 7.3 Power Stroke. That thing, it's a very dependable engine, but it is just a turtle compared to the rest of these engines that they are producing out here. So I put the stealth module in there, which doesn't leave an imprint on your ECM. It just basically take your GPS sensor, the wire that's in it, and basically plug it into the module side. It goes through this module, and then you plug in the module wire on the other end. I can adjust how much fuel is being poured into the combustion chamber, so I'm able to withstand the RPM, hold that gear so it doesn't shift in and out of overdrive, and also I can tow better. I know in the 4 settings, the first one's stock, the second one is 20 horsepower, third one's 40 horsepower, and the last setting is 60 horsepower, and I'm getting 125 foot-pounds of torque out of it, added on to what it already is. And it's night and day difference just for that. But back to this, let's kind of talk about the different types of injections or fuel injection systems. So we got their electronic unit injectors, but the Huey is hydraulically actuated. So engine oil is what is putting this pressure that is causing the fuel to be the high pressure the fuel is being injected in. The mechanical electronic unit injection was the one that was driving the injectors by a camshaft. That was what was the timing was telling it to the timing of the camshaft was telling it to inject the fuel, and then the common rail. Common rail you see a lot, and everybody says it's hands down best one. Common rail is a long metal tube, gets fuel supplied by the fuel pump, and then that fuel is at high pressure shot in through the injector into the combustion chamber. And not only is this getting more torque and horsepower, but it's causing the noise from your exhaust and from the engine itself. I know on mine I got a little tick from the injectors, probably just because they're a little gummy, but you can hear that because of how fast they're working. It's annoying, but that common rail system is pretty nice because it is supposed to quiet it down, and it helps out with your emissions because you're burning the fuel better because you're injecting at such higher pressures. And enough of that, but yeah, right here especially, increased power and torque up to 25%, and that you get higher mileage out of it, so you're getting more out of your fuel, or diesel, not fuel. But the first major improvement was the turbo. We started turbocharging these engines, and it's just a smaller displacement of an engine, but that turbo is just creating that more horsepower, and that's how they reduce the size, because in order to get this high output without a turbo, you'd have a huge engine, and they were trying to reduce the size. But your turbo, it's got an impeller basically and a compressor. Your exhaust air is spinning that impeller, and on the other side you got your compressor wheel, which is spinning and sucking in all the air, which is compressing it and shoving it into the combustion chamber. So that was one of the major advancements that they had. And one of the quotes was, more power out of small displacement. And that's exactly what it is doing. But the reason why we see all this, because 1990s, in the early 2000s, they were coming out with, the EPA was coming out with all these emission regulations, and we were seeing them putting all these regulations out, but in order for diesel, because the ozone layer, we're trying to protect that, trying to make it less smog and less bad chemicals that we breathe in every day. So in order for these diesel engines to be still producing today, they have to meet the certain regulations. And that's where the fuel injection comes in. We see that the fuel injection is creating less, it's burning cleaner basically. But then we got stuff like EGRs and diesel particulate filters and catalytic converters, and that is what is cleaning. We got two-way catalytic converters that's what's filtering this exhaust, so it keeps it down. Yeah, the DPFs, you always hear people bagging on them and then they try to delete them, but it really is just trying to better our ozone and keep this pollution out of the air, which, you look over at China, you can't even see the dang sky because it's so much smog in the air. But that is why we're doing all this stuff, and and not only are these cleaning the air or the exhaust that is coming out, but it's also bettering fuel economy, and that is what's getting customers' attentions. Here's a few pictures. That is our DPF. It basically just heats up all the soot and crap, and here's our catalytic converter, and it's basically just like a base air filter. And that is our EGR, and cools and exhaust valves. And extra improvements there was a bunch of little stuff that manufacturers did to upgrade the diesel engines, and this was basically putting aluminum heads on it, putting aluminum pistons on it, aluminum pistons they were putting on it. They were melting the crown, extending out the crown of the piston, and we see our connecting rods. They're putting, instead of forged metal on it, they're using this. I can't remember what they're using. Yeah, powdered metal material that they're compressing at high temps, and the way you phase your crankshaft, and and what else? Yeah, I think I basically covered a lot of them, but that aluminum pistons, because it does manage the heat better, and they can make them cheaper, and they can just make a bunch of these and it's cheaper, but it is also beneficial because it's lighter weight and it handles the heat better. That's just little improvements that they've done, but they're big improvements, don't get me wrong. But in putting intake heaters on does keep the operators from having to plug in the stuff, or plug in their trucks. Like, I gotta go out, and if I don't plug in my truck, have fun trying to start in the morning, it's a pain in the butt. But well, let's dig deeper. And in my essay, I focused on the Duramax engine. My dad owns a L5P Duramax 2018, and it's a workhorse. That truck can pull his 26-foot toy hauler with a side-by-side in there doing 85. Like, yeah, you're not supposed to, but whatever, it can handle it. And Duramax, they struggled to get their first motor out on the line. They had to partner up with the GM and Isuzu, or whatever the company's called. And then their first, July 17th, 2000 was the first Duramax engine that rolled off the assembly line. But 2001, we saw the LB7 with 235 horsepower and 500 foot-pounds of torque. Mine's a 2001 Power Stroke, and that's the same exact horsepower and torque right around. But every year you just see them getting better. Like 2004, the LOY, when we're on the LOY, we were 310 horsepower, 520 foot-pounds of torque. The LBZ was in 2006 with 360 horsepower and 650 foot-pounds of torque. And in 2007, we see the LMM with 365 and 660 foot-pounds of torque. Then they kind of slowed down, but in 2011 they got the LML, which was putting out 397 horsepower and 765 foot-pounds of torque. And then in 2017, they came out with the L5P with 445 horsepower and 910 foot-pounds of torque. Not even in 17 years, they gained horsepower by 210 and gained the foot-pounds of torque by 410. It's nuts. In that short of time, they just increased the horsepower. And on these new engines, they just stuff like this, like the new engine block that integrates large diameter crankshaft connecting rod journals that allow the placement of stronger crankshaft and increased bearing area to handle the high cylinder loads. So you're able to put these engines under high loads, and they can withstand it, because just upgrading where the connecting rod is riding on the crankshaft, increasing the bearing size on that, it can handle those high compression ratios and the load that you're going to be putting on the engine, like pulling this 26-foot toy hauler doing 85 down the highway. They enhanced the oil circuit, which they put a special feed tube into the turbo, which gives you faster oil delivery and
more oil displaced or not more oil displaced, increased pressure, and they upgrade that oil pan to a two-piece design for quieter operation. But that's nice because then you don't have to listen to a loud power stroke in 7.3 that you hear everything. You gotta turn the music all the way up just to hear it. But trying to have a conversation in the 2001 7.3 power stroke is not fun. I can tell you that right now. You're over there yelling like you're 80 years old and your hearing aids aren't working. But they stronger connecting rods incorporated with a new 45 split angle design, which is enabling them to put these big pistons with big connecting rods and able for them to flow just perfectly. They don't use pin bushings, allow the engine to rev quicker. Like just little stuff like that is what is making these diesel engines just so powerful. And I'm so amazed by it. So let's wrap this up. Diesel engines came a long way. We watched the video in Joe's class that showed us what Rudolph diesel was putting out that was rolling off petroleum oil or whatever. Now we got low sulfur diesel oil putting out less emissions. We got more horsepower, more torque, quieter engines, easier to operate, like they're paying to work on, but that's why we have people to pay to work on these new ones. But I just like driving that power stroke out there and hopping in my dad's Duramax. It's like a spaceship compared to mine. Like mine looks like I'm the Flintstones driving it with my feet. But and they're gonna come out with new engines every year, and they're gonna try to incorporate new ideas, and hope in my lifetime that we see it instead of 45 to 55% efficiency, we'll be seeing them up around 70-80% because they're just coming out with new ideas. That's how they make money. That's how they keep up with today. And California is going to be putting more emission regulations on us, so they got to fight with that too. But that's all I have to say. Thank you guys for watching. Really appreciate it. Hope you guys are doing good with this coronavirus. I'd like to listen for your feedback. Have a good night.